Ruined my wedding? Fine. Then get ready for the show of a lifetime. They stole my dress, my venue, and my fiancé, so I crashed their fake wedding and exposed everything. You won't believe what happened next. The morning I was supposed to get married, I rolled over in bed and checked my phone, only to see a message from my future mother-in-law that made my blood run cold. We've taken your dress. The venue is cancelled. Your fiancé knows what's best. Just like that. No explanation, no warning. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone and dialed Ethan's number, desperate for answers. But what they didn't expect was that I'd still show up, and they sure weren't ready for the surprise I had in store for them. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The warning signs were right there, blinking in neon. Linda, my fiancé's mother, had never really liked me. Oh, she'd smile and act all sweet when Ethan was around, but the second we were alone, it was like a switch flipped. She didn't even try to hide how little she thought of me. She nitpicked everything, from my choice of dress to the flowers to the venue. Nothing I did was ever good enough for her. She had her own vision of how the day should look, and when I pushed back, she sulked like a kid who didn't get her way. I brushed it off at the time, chalked it up to her being one of those overbearing, opinionated moms. But now I know better. I truly believed Ethan had my back. I thought he saw through her act. I thought I could count on him, but I was about to get hit with the truth I never saw coming. That morning, I woke up feeling nervous and excited. My stomach was fluttering, but in the best way. It was my wedding day, the day I'd been planning for months, pouring my time, heart, and money into. The day I was supposed to marry the man I loved and begin our life together. And then my phone buzzed. Linda, we've taken your dress. The venue is cancelled. Ethan knows what's best. Don't make a scene. Just accept it. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I stared at the message, reading it over and over, trying to make it make sense. My chest tightened, and the room spun. I sat up so quickly I nearly fell out of bed. My heart was pounding in my ears. I immediately called Ethan. Straight to voicemail. I tried Taylor, my maid of honor. Nothing. I even called the venue, praying this was some sick misunderstanding. But when the woman on the line paused before saying, Ethan called early this morning to cancel everything. I'm so sorry. I felt the ground drop out from under me. I could barely hold the phone, my hands were shaking that badly. No, this couldn't be happening. I rushed to the closet. My dress was gone. My shoes, gone. Even the veil, the one I'd picked out with my mom, had vanished. The panic gave way to something else. Something sharp, cold, dangerous. This wasn't a fluke. This was a setup. They had planned this whole thing out, waiting until the last possible second to pull the rug from under me, thinking I'd be too heartbroken to do anything about it. Well, they were wrong. I threw on whatever clothes I could grabbed my keys, and bolted. If my dress had disappeared, then someone had taken it. My first instinct was to drive to Ethan's place, but my gut told me it'd be a waste of time, so I headed to Linda's. When she opened the door, I saw it right away in her face, that smug little look. She wasn't surprised to see me. If anything, she looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. You need to calm down, she said, leaning on the doorframe like this was all just some mild inconvenience. Calm down? I was standing there in sweats on what was supposed to be the biggest day of my life, and this woman was telling me to calm down? Where's my dress? I asked, trying to stay composed. She didn't even blink. It's gone. You won't be needing it anyway. The wedding's off. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. You don't get to cancel my wedding, I shot back. That smug smirk of hers grew wider. I wanted to wipe it clean off her face. Ethan made the call, she said. He's doing what's best. I took a long, slow breath. Where is he? Busy. I don't know how I kept myself from screaming or smashing something. But I knew she wasn't going to give me anything useful. So I turned around and walked away. But I wasn't giving up, not by a long shot. If Linda was behind this, I knew she hadn't just cancelled my wedding. She was up to something far worse. I could feel it in my bones. So I drove straight to the venue. And what I saw there confirmed everything. Cars were pulling in. Guests were arriving, dressed to the nines. The place looked exactly how I had planned it, every detail just the way I'd imagined. Because the wedding wasn't cancelled. It just wasn't mine anymore. I got out of the car and walked toward the entrance. Nobody stopped me. People I knew, people who had RSVP'd to my wedding, smiled and nodded at me as I walked past, not realizing anything was wrong. And then I stepped inside. And there she was. Jenna. Wearing my wedding dress. My whole body went cold. My vision blurred. I couldn't move. Jenna, who had always been just a little too close to Ethan. Jenna, who I'd called a friend. I'd ignored the way she laughed at his jokes, the way her hand lingered on his shoulder, the look she gave him when she thought I wasn't watching. I'd convinced myself I was imagining it. But now, there she was. At my altar. Wearing my dress. Standing next to my fiancé. Like I never even existed. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I could barely breathe. I felt like the ground beneath me was about to cave in. And Ethan? He stood there cool as ever. Not an ounce of guilt on his face. Not a single sign that this might be the most twisted, humiliating thing he had ever done. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't some last-minute change of heart. This had been planned. He let me believe we were getting married. Let me send invitations. Let me pour my savings into the wedding. Let me picture a life with him, while all along, he was planning to marry someone else. They wanted me to wake up, read that cruel message, and vanish like I was just some girl he'd dated once upon a time. They were trying to erase me. They thought I'd just go quietly. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. I stood there, frozen. People were chatting, taking photos, completely unaware that they were witnessing the most elaborate, disgusting betrayal I'd ever seen. Linda was up front, beaming with pride, clearly thinking she'd pulled off the perfect scheme. Jenna adjusted my veil like she was some innocent bride, all radiant and glowing. And Ethan? He didn't even glance around to see if I was there. He didn't look nervous. Didn't look guilty. Because he knew. He'd been in on it from the beginning. And something deep inside me snapped. You'd think I would have broken down right then and there. Maybe cried, maybe screamed. But I didn't. Instead, this weird calm washed over me. Not peace, more like a stillness before a storm. They had tried to strip me of everything, my dress, the venue, my fiancé, my entire wedding. But I wasn't gone. Not yet. So I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and kept walking. People started to notice. A few looked at me with confusion, others with recognition. Whispers rippled through the room. Still, no one stopped me. Not until I made it to the front row. That's when I saw her. Linda. Her eyes locked on mine, and for the first time since I met that woman, I saw something real, fear. She shot to her feet and tried to block my path like she could physically stop me from bursting her perfect little bubble. You need to leave, she hissed, her voice low but sharp. I smiled. Actually smiled. I think I'll stay. The whispers grew louder. Guests started nudging one another. Heads were turning. I caught my cousin Emily's eyes, wide, stunned. And then I spotted Taylor. My best friend. My maid of honor. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't confused either. She looked guilty. Like she knew. My stomach dropped. Ethan had betrayed me. Jenna had stabbed me in the back. Linda had orchestrated the whole thing. But Taylor? That one hit different. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something, but I wasn't in the mood for excuses or fake apologies. I turned my attention back to Linda, who was still pretending like she had control of the situation. You weren't invited, she said with a forced, brittle smile. I let out a loud laugh, sharp and bitter. Really? Because last time I checked, this was supposed to be my wedding. That was when Ethan finally turned around. His face was a blank slate, but there was a flicker in his eyes, panic, maybe. Jenna, standing right beside him, went pale. Everyone was watching now. Ethan stepped forward, his voice smooth and practiced. Let's not do this here. I tilted my head, smiling. Oh, but you wanted to do this here, didn't you? I waved a hand around the room. Since you went through all the trouble of planning this little event behind my back. Jenna reached for Ethan's arm like she thought she could somehow fix this disaster. Look, we didn't, she started. I cut her off. You didn't what, Jenna? Didn't steal my fiancé? Didn't squeeze into my dress? Didn't let me pour my heart into planning this whole wedding while you just hung around, waiting to take my place? She opened and closed her mouth like a fish gasping for air. I turned to Ethan, my voice cold. How long? He said nothing. How long have you been planning this? Still silence. Jenna shifted uncomfortably beside him. It just happened, she muttered. I let out a sharp, joyless laugh. Oh, sure. You just accidentally ended up in my wedding dress and his bed? That's your story? Linda let out one of those overdramatic sighs like I was the problem. Stop making a scene, she said. I snapped my head toward her. This was you, wasn't it? You planned this whole thing. She didn't even try to deny it. And I nodded, that icy feeling spreading deeper. You know what, Linda? I was actually willing to be the bigger person. I was ready to marry your son and put up with you for the rest of my life. I stepped in closer, just enough so only she could hear me. But now? I'm going to destroy you. She flinched. Good. Ethan finally spoke, his voice annoyingly calm. It's over, okay? Let's just move on. Move on. Something in me snapped. All right, I said, pulling out my phone. Then let's tell everyone exactly what's going on. I tapped play. Suddenly, the room filled with Linda's voice, loud and clear. We've taken your dress. The venue is cancelled. And your fiancé knows what's best. Gasps echoed through the room. Then came Ethan's voice. Babe, I'm sorry, but my mom is right. You're just not good enough. Jenna is better suited for me. She'll be a proper wife. Silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Or, in this case, a champagne glass, because someone dropped one. Jenna stepped away from Ethan like he was radioactive. Linda's face went from smug to ghostly white. And Ethan? He looked like he was about to puke. I took a deep breath, soaking in the moment, then turned to Jenna. Still want him? I asked. She bolted. Linda turned on Ethan, her voice a sharp whisper. You told her that? Ethan didn't move. He looked like he couldn't even process how fast things were unraveling. I pulled out a folded piece of paper and held it up. Oh, and you know what else I've got? I said, opening it slowly. Linda's head whipped toward me. What? You see, Ethan and I signed financial agreements before the wedding, I said casually. Which means, he owes me. Her mouth fell open. $35,000, I said, reading the number off the page. Due immediately. Ethan looked like someone had punched him in the gut. That's not. I cut him off with a shrug. It's in writing. Signed. Legal. Then I smiled, sweet and venomous. And if you don't pay up? I leaned in. Well, you know I love a good public scandal. Linda looked like she was about to collapse. Ethan stammered, you can't. Oh, but I can. Then I turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show, I said. Because it's not over yet. Ethan looked like a rat trapped in a cage. Linda was opening and closing her mouth, but nothing came out. The guests were stunned. Phones were out. People were recording everything. Jenna was gone, good riddance. Taylor was still there, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. Ethan and his lovely family had tried to take everything from me. They'd hoped I'd be too ashamed to show my face, too broken to fight back. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Just as Linda opened her mouth again, probably to toss out some excuse, the front doors flew open. And in walked a man in a sharp suit, carrying a briefcase. Apologies for the interruption, he said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. Ethan turned white as a ghost. Because this? This was my lawyer. He looked at me, gave a respectful nod, and said, Miss, my name, everything is in order. I smiled. Talk about perfect timing. Linda reached for Ethan's arm like she thought she could keep him from collapsing right there on the spot. You got a lawyer, she snapped, her voice filled with disbelief. I turned to her, calm as ever. Of course I did. You and your golden boy stole my wedding, my money, and months of my life. You really thought I wouldn't lawyer up? The crowd gasped. People were openly whispering now. Ethan finally managed to speak. This is ridiculous. But my lawyer didn't even acknowledge him. Cool as ice, he said, according to the financial agreement signed prior to this event, you, Ethan, are legally responsible for all wedding-related expenses. Ethan looked like he forgot how to breathe. $35,000, my lawyer added. Non-negotiable. That's when Linda totally lost it. This is a scam, she screeched. My lawyer didn't even flinch. No, ma'am. It's legally binding. You planned this entire wedding and then swapped out the bride last minute. That means your son now owns the bill. Ethan's face went white as a sheet. You have until the end of the day, the lawyer said evenly, before we pursue legal action. A waiter nearby coughed, trying to cover a laugh. Somewhere in the crowd, someone muttered, Holy SH. And then, a shaky voice broke through. Wait, Taylor said. I turned to look at her, not sure I wanted to hear anything she had to say. But she looked wrecked. Like something had cracked wide open inside her. She took a deep breath. I knew. Another wave of gasps. Ethan spun toward her. Taylor, shut up. But she shook her head, frantic now. No. I can't keep lying. Her eyes filled with tears. Linda told me. Weeks ago. She said they were going to replace you. I felt sick. She said you weren't the right kind of wife for Ethan. My best friend had known. Taylor wiped her face, trembling. I wanted to tell you. I swear I did. But Linda, she threatened me. I blinked. Threatened you? Taylor nodded, miserable. She said if I warned you, she'd ruin me. That she'd make sure I lost my job. Murmurs rippled through the room. Taylor looked down, ashamed. She owns the firm I work at. She said she'd fire me if I said anything. Linda crossed her arms, unbothered. And I would have. The crowd booed. Someone actually shouted, "Are you serious?" Taylor turned to me, pleading. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I was scared. I was weak and I held up a hand. I couldn't deal with her guilt right now. I turned back to Linda and Ethan. You really threatened my best friend's job just to get rid of me? Linda rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. It's called handling problems. I let out a slow breath. Unbelievable. But Taylor wasn't done. She turned to Ethan, voice shaking. Tell her the rest. Ethan froze. Linda whipped her head around. Taylor, don't you dare. Tell her the rest, Ethan. Taylor shouted. The room went dead silent. I stared at Ethan, and I could see it. His whole face fell apart. Ethan, I said softly, stepping toward him. Tell me. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His jaw clenched, hands balled into fists. Then he muttered it. Barely above a whisper. Jenna's pregnant. The room exploded. Gasps. Whispers. A loud what, from someone near the back. I staggered. The word echoed in my head. Pregnant. Jenna was pregnant. She had been my friend. She'd taken my fiancé, slipped into my dress, hijacked my wedding, and now she was carrying his child? And I was just supposed to vanish? Ethan had the nerve to look like he felt bad. Like that would fix anything. I turned to Linda. So that's what this was about. She actually shrugged. Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Jenna is giving my son an heir, she said. An heir. Like this was some medieval royal succession. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A real, sharp laugh. Ethan winced. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I cut him off, holding up a hand. Don't. Just don't. Then I turned to the guests. Everyone, let's give a big round of applause for Ethan and Jenna, who are expecting a baby after stabbing me in the back. Somebody actually clapped. A woman somewhere in the back muttered, I need more popcorn. Ethan looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. Linda looked like she was about to combust. I was done. I turned to my lawyer. Are we good? He nodded. I'll take care of the rest. Perfect. I smoothed my suit jacket. And I walked out. Or at least, I started to. Because as I reached the doors, something in me hesitated. I wanted to leave. I really did. But there was still something hanging in the air, something unfinished. They had stolen my wedding, crushed my trust, twisted everything, and yet. I still didn't feel closure. I turned back. Ethan was rubbing his temples like I was the headache. Like this whole disaster was just something he'd have to deal with. Linda was muttering, shooting daggers at Taylor like she could will her into spontaneous combustion. The crowd? They were hooked. Shocked. Filming. And then, Jenna walked back in. Still in my dress. She looked absolutely furious. Not embarrassed. Not ashamed. Just mad. You just had to ruin everything, she snapped at me, storming down the aisle like she still belonged there. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I'm sorry, did I ruin your big day? She crossed her arms, breathing hard. You weren't supposed to find out like this, she hissed. I stared at her for a beat. Then let out another laugh, this one quieter, more disbelieving. You're unbelievable, I said. What exactly did you think I wasn't going to find out? I asked her, stepping forward. Was it the part where you stole my fiancé? The part where you slipped into my dress? Or the part where you're carrying his baby? That one hit her hard. She flinched. And just like that, I knew, it wasn't supposed to come out. Ethan groaned. Jenna, stop talking. But I wasn't letting up. I leaned in. What else, Jenna? You might as well lay it all out now. The show's already started. She turned away, like maybe avoiding my eyes would make this all disappear. Then, just as the silence started to stretch, Linda stepped forward, eyes wide, her voice tight with panic. Jenna, don't you dare. Too late. Jenna snapped. You think I'm the bad guy? She spat. Do you have any idea what I was promised? The entire room went still. Ethan's head jerked up. Jenna, shut up. But she was done keeping secrets. They told me I'd have this perfect life, she said, her voice shaking, eyes blazing. That Ethan would marry me. That we'd be the perfect couple, the new face of their family. My stomach twisted. Linda hadn't just sabotaged my wedding. She had picked Jenna out in advance. Like a replacement doll. A smoother version of me, one she thought she could control. And Ethan? He'd gone right along with it. Jenna's voice cracked. But now I get it. I was never meant to be the wife. I was just the tool to get rid of you. She turned toward Linda, eyes narrowed. And after the baby's born, you were going to push me out too, weren't you? Linda stiffened. Don't be ridiculous. But Jenna wasn't buying it. She took a shaky step forward, her voice rising. Oh my God. You were. That's why you kept saying the baby was all that mattered. Ethan looked uncomfortable. Jenna, can we talk about this later? But she was spiraling now. You lied to me, she whispered, staring straight at him. You said you loved me. Linda scoffed. Love doesn't matter, Jenna. A strong family matters. And that? That was the breaking point. Jenna ripped off the veil, threw it at Linda's feet, and let out a hollow, bitter laugh. I was just another pawn, she said, her voice raw. Just like her. She pointed at me. And in that moment, it hit me. Jenna wasn't just my replacement. She was me. She'd fallen into the same trap, believed the same lies. The only difference was, I got out in time. Jenna wiped her eyes, said nothing more, and walked out. Ethan called after her, panic setting in. Jenna. Jenna, wait. She didn't. And then, right on cue, Linda snapped. This is your fault, she screamed, pointing right at me. I blinked. My fault? She jabbed a finger toward my chest. If you had just left quietly, none of this would have happened. I let out a slow, sharp breath, shaking my head. You really don't get it, do you? I looked at Ethan. He never loved me. And guess what? He doesn't love Jenna either. You've been pulling the strings his whole life, and now? You've destroyed him. Ethan's jaw clenched. Linda turned on him. Say something, she demanded. But he said nothing. Just stood there, silent. Pathetic. A grown man finally realizing he'd lost everything. And you know what? I could have said something brutal. One last sentence to crush what was left of him. But he didn't deserve it. None of them did. So I stepped back. I turned to my lawyer. Let's go. He straightened his tie, nodded. We'll send the final paperwork later. And then I walked down the aisle. The same aisle I was supposed to walk in a white dress. I passed the stunned guests. Past the whispers. Past Linda, still trembling with rage. And I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Ethan tried to reach out, of course he did. The messages came in one after another. Can we talk? I made a mistake. Please, just give me a chance to explain. I never replied. Jenna? She disappeared. Moved out of state. Nobody really knows where she went. And Linda? She lost everything. After the scandal spread, and believe me, it spread fast, Ethan's business deals started to collapse. Investors pulled out. Clients vanished. People didn't want anything to do with him. And Linda, once her perfect little world started crumbling, turned on Ethan too. I heard she packed up and moved somewhere far away, trying to start over without him. Karma took care of it. I didn't even have to lift a finger. As for me? I thrived. I moved to a new city. Got a real job. Met real friends, the kind who actually have your back. And I stopped looking behind me. Because the truth is, I won. Not because I got revenge. Not because I exposed them or embarrassed them. But because I walked away. Because I built a life so much better than the one they tried to trap me in. And now, when I think back to that day, the text, the betrayal, the chaos, I don't feel a thing. And that's the best revenge of all.